licensing at BMI, and we are proud of our longtime partnership with CRS. For us, every year, this is an opportunity to reach out to the broadcasters and thank them for supporting our songwriters. It's the licensing fees we receive from all of your stations that help fuel the creative process and allow our songwriters to make a living doing what they love to do best and helping create the music that helps your stations brand who they are. Over the years, you've seen our songwriters highlighted in WCRS Live, our annual guitar pull. Last year, of course, we had the Legend Session with John Oates, all in the interest of raising the profile of our songwriters and celebrating the craft of songwriting. And this afternoon's event is certainly a moment for us to do that in a spectacular fashion with an extraordinary songwriter. You all know him for his artistry and for the incredible hits, and we at BMI are so proud of his songwriting. So on behalf of my colleague here in Nashville who runs the show in writer-publisher relations, Jody Williams, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your support, and we want to congratulate Keith Urban on all of his accomplishments. Thanks for being here.
I'm R.J. Curtis with All Access and proud to be a CRB board member. This is Beverly Brannigan with the Journal Broadcast Group, also a board member. A couple of announcements before we roll right into Keith Urban. This is the last session of CRS. I don't know, a pretty good way to end it off.
Well,
here.
thank you. Thank you for being here this afternoon. The session with Keith Urban is called Being Present. And it's remarkable for several reasons. One is that Keith's schedule with Idol allowed him to be here with us at CRS this year. So we're very excited about that. He said yes. The other remarkable thing about this is Keith Urban chose the topic for our panel today. Being present is something that he spends a lot of time concentrating on his life, his business life, his personal life, and you're going to hear about that. But it's important to him. He's passionate about the topic, and he's also passionate about sharing what he knows about it and his experiences with you. And so that's why he's here today. It's what he wants to talk about. He wants to talk about being present. So we're happy he's here, and he's just about a minute away from being here. RJ?
And you know what? When I think about being present at CRS, this is probably the greatest panel ever. Maybe we should do another one next year at the beginning of the week, because think about how many micro conversations we have during the week at CRS. And admit it, you're in a big room, you're talking to somebody, and then, about 35 seconds into the, meaningless conversation that you're having, you're looking around the room for the next shiny object, the next person you can talk to and network with. That happens, right? I mean, I've done it all. Well, I've tried not to do it all week long. Knowing we were going to do this, I've tried to dial in. So hopefully what we're going to talk about today will be helpful to you in your world. And right now, let's show you how Keith Urban makes it work in his world. CRS 2015, welcome Keith Urban. Beverly asked to be in the middle so she could separate me from Keith, the whole panel.
I'm protecting you.
Thank you, Beverly.
You're welcome.
You're a team player.
Yeah, yeah. So we're glad.
Hi, everybody, by the way. Thank you. And thank you for coming in, too.
So you're present today. You had kind of a big night last night.
We had a fun
And then
night.
up early this morning.
Yeah. Who was there last night?
Everybody.
It was a lot of fun. And I love playing the Ryman for a start. Somebody once said it's like playing inside an acoustic guitar. It really is. It's the most beautiful sounding venue. So I'm glad we got to do that last night.
Well, thank you for being here to talk about something, as I said, was a topic that you chose and are very passionate about. So I think a good place to get started would be for you to share what being present means in your life.
Well, I mean, I always say first and foremost, it's getting harder and harder, I think, to be present because we've got so many things pulling at us, and the ability to sort of reach any of us immediately is pretty much become 24/7. And I mean, without getting into a whole conversation about how we're trying to reconcile technology with this and with this right now, that's a whole challenge unto itself. Because it's meant to be time management, and it ends up being that we end up working much more. And I also think the bigger challenge is we've got this window of time in our life where there's not much going on in this little period at the beginning, there's not much going on right around here at the end. Everything's jammed in the middle. Family, career, our aspirations, our goals, our health, our ability to do what we want to do, everything is in this tiny little window. Well, it's all important, you know. We say, well, just do the important thing. We go, 7 of these things are all important. I want to spend time with my child. I want to spend time with my wife. I got to answer this email. This call is important. This is time sensitive, you know. And it's like, it's crazy. And I hope that in the process we can start to not implode in the midst of all of this, trying to keep up with the dumb phone.
You mentioned time management. It's really beyond time management when you've got these 7 priorities all happening at the same time, and they're all important. It's whichever one you're doing at that moment, you're there, aren't you?
Yeah. And look, first of all, I'm very, very lucky. I have a lot of people that help me do a lot of things. So if it looks like I get a lot accomplished, it's because I have a lot of people that get things accomplished for me. Starting first and foremost with my wife, who is extraordinary at keeping everything sort of scheduled and balanced. And there's a lot of things that I wouldn't know where to start. So she's very, very good at all of that. But the moment is really what I wanted to try and keep today centered on, being present, because it's become more and more elusive.
And we're going to talk about different components of that, like your live show, your interaction with fans, VIPs, and then we'll touch a little later on family. Before we get to any of that, I was not present at the Ryman last night. Sorry. Almost ashamed to admit that. So the last time I saw you was on national TV at the Oscars. And I want to know, coming to CRS, is that a step up in the world or is it a step down? 'Cause, you know, I mean, I saw you like looking, you were a tuxed out man, and now we're at CRS. What the hell happened, Keith?
I'm very comfortable right now, I gotta say. Yeah, tux is not my thing. It was fun. The Oscars were fun. I'm going to start by saying that because I have no dog in the race, so it's a blast for me. I don't care who wins or loses. We walked in and I said to Nick, "Are these our seats?" And she went, "Yeah, I think we're sitting right here." I'm like, "Yeah," you know.
So there's no pressure to be. You're just by being present. You just have to show up and enjoy that as a passenger.
Yeah, and it's all fleeting. That's the thing that's like the truest of truth. It's all fleeting. It's all fleeting. And, you know, those moments where people like us get to sit on the front row, you don't sit on the front row your whole career. You start to ease back. You know, you start back there, you work your way to the front, and before you know it, you're working your way back again. That's the way it goes. So I don't want to miss it while I'm on the front row, because it doesn't last that long, you know.
Well, let's talk about your live show and the staging of your show, and we sort of got kind of an overview of it on the opening video. But can you talk about the staging, the design of your set? What are your thoughts in the design of the set for your show? How does it get you closer to your audience, and with the overall concept of being present with those people in most cases now a huge arena?
Yeah, well, I think for me it's coming from playing the small places where there was just a handful of people in a corner bar, like a lot of the artists now are coming up playing that way, Eric Church, people like that. So there's a sense of proximity. People are right there, and I didn't feel like that had to change when the venue got bigger, particularly because when you've got a huge PA system and a massive video wall behind you, whatever distance is created between us and the audience, that can compensate and help us with that. particularly in the case of the big screens, which can get up really close, for better or worse, can get up really close. But at least the expression of any performance can be felt from the people in the very back row.
Well, I think I've seen that transition because I remember the Love Pain whole crazy thing tour. There was a long runway that went from the original stage and way out there, and I don't know that I see that anymore. But you're going out into the crowd. You're walking out amongst the audience.
That started when I was playing in the pubs in Australia. It would literally just be getting off the stage and standing on the bar and jamming out on the bar because what I wanted to try and do was have the audience feel like that's the stage right there. That can kind of be the stage. The back of the stage, the stage is from that wall to that back wall. I'm on it, you guys are on it, and if I could accomplish that, it would be like playing in a club,
And then you do like a satellite stage in the back of amphitheaters and stuff, and that gives those people their front row seat, even though they don't have one originally.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's great because suddenly the further seats become the closer seats, and everyone here is suddenly at the back of the room, which is kind of cool.
But as the night goes along, how do you create that personal contact? A fan wants to be face to face with you. What's your go into the crowd approach to make that happen?
How do you mean?
Well, when you're out in the crowd, that does not seem choreographed to me. That seems like spontaneous and let's go out in the crowd.
Yeah.
Is there a moment where it's blocked out? Like, okay, on this song, I'm going to walk. I'm going to down the left side of the aisle. Or how like right now is that for you to do that?
I think it's the things that work the best. I think have to be much more spontaneous, to be real. People know when it's scripted and rehearsed. Rehearsed spontaneity, people go, there's something fishy about that, And I've even found it if at an award show, it's like, I made the mistake one time of telling the producer, so I think I'm going to jump off the stage. At the end I'm going to go over there, and he goes, okay, great, well, we'll make sure we have the cameras there. And I suddenly went, that's not going to work. You need the chaos. You need just the chaos. The chaos is what is exhilarating, and it has to be real. You don't know what's going to happen. So then I started telling them I was going off there, but I'd actually go off over there, knowing that the cameras would have to scramble. And in that moment, it's interesting and it's exciting, and it's so hard to get people to accept that it's unpredictable. It's got to be unpredictable. So going out in the audience will be different. I know I'm going to go out, I'm not sure when, not sure where, other than the fact that we have a little stage sometimes set up. But even that, we had the crew change it from night to night. So you never know quite where that little stage is going to be. Because if it was in the same place, YouTube kills all those gags. Everybody knows what's going to happen. So keeping things fresh.
If anyone doubts the spontaneity of that, keep an eye on Keith, but watch the security guys. Because those guys are like, holy shit, what's happening next? That's chaos for them. Beverly and I were talking, the question about the mobile devices, Beverly, that was something you brought up the other day, and I'm curious to get Keith's thoughts on that.
So you're trying very hard to be present at any given time on stage, on a ramp, in the audience. And what you're looking at, I'm guessing, is a bunch of people holding up their smartphones, as opposed to seeing their faces.
Yeah.
I'm interested in knowing from you, does it feel like to you that they are not being present when you see that? Or are they being present to the best of their ability? And does it inhibit you getting that energy back from the audience in any ways? What do you feel when you're on stage and you see that?
It's a new phenomena, of course, but of course we're doing it with our family, and our kids and vacations. We're doing it with everything now. We're filming everything, and I guess it's a process. I always think these things are a process. As a society, we're in the process of this new toy. We got this new toy, and we're having a blast with it. But at a certain point, we'll kind of go, I'm not liking the results of how much I'm using this right now. So we'll figure that out. But I just think audiences need to enjoy a concert however they want to enjoy it. It's not my job to tell them how to enjoy it. They just got to experience it the way they want to experience it. Because you can have somebody holding a camera up, and in some cases the iPad, which is classic, it's the size of the person's head. And they've got somebody full-faced next to them on
Keith,
this iPad.
Not to interrupt you, but I have to tell you, I saw you in Atlanta at Where is it? Yeah, the Verizon. I am not kidding you. There was a dude in front of me with a freaking laptop.
Well, that was my teleprompter. But anyway.
No.
No,
I mean,
but I look at it like, oh, the crowd just doubled in size. Right? It's another way to look at it.
Yeah,
it's another way to look at it. Some people that couldn't make it to the concert are getting to experience being at the concert without actually being there. It's pretty cool. So I'm just playing for the people out there, and if they're sort of cyber there or really there, they're there. Yeah.
So the lucky people that win meet and greets get to go backstage and see you. Your meet and greets are very different from a lot of other artists who visit with their fans backstage. So I'm interested in having you describe that, and most interested in hearing the aha moment that you had when you realized that the typical meet and greet wasn't how you wanted to meet your fans.
Right.
It's all about being present, of course.
It is,
Your
and it's-
ability to have that moment with them.
Yeah, and you've only got, what the hell?
I want to know if you pulled a muscle doing that. That's what I want to know.
Maybe I didn't, but it's good.
That looks hard to do.
It's good to be flexible, right? You don't get bent out of shape. Anyway, it's terrible, right? But the meet and greets are hard because you want to try and meet as many people as possible, but you want it to be intimate and real. So those two things are already at odds with one another, unless you're going to have a meet and greet that goes for 2 hours, and then there's no time for the gig, you know. So I just try and keep a balance of how many people I think you can really meet and have a moment with, and it may not be long, but it should be personal. Each person should feel like they personally just got a moment with you. So we're always working on ways to make it just more of that, really.
So physically, it's a small space, isn't it?
We created this thing called the box, and it's just a little, a little black curtained area.
Right there.
Yeah, basically it's that,
Yeah.
and we have a rug and stuff, and we have our photographer. And what it did is it not only allowed us to have a moment with 1 or 2 people without a big line of people watching, so you're already more intimate and focused on them, but it allowed each one to be different. So if you say, look, I can't sign anything because we got to play and we just really won't have time, you may meet some mother whose child is going through something and she's like, can you please sign this for him? I want to be able to do that, but I don't want to set a precedent.
Right.
I can do that because nobody can see. And then they leave and then the next person comes in. So everything can be individual and tailor to the moment and to the person, and I think that's key.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at these pictures. That's a great picture there. That's probably a moment someone walked. That's a great takeaway moment. And the photograph that they get, that's something they can put on Facebook and show their friends, and that's one experience. But that interaction that you're talking about, what's your goal for people? What do you want them to think and feel when they walk away from that meet and greet?
Just connected. And that's what it's all about. I really think that's what it's all about. We just all want to feel a part of something. We want to belong, and we want to feel like we matter, and that somebody noticed us, someone heard us, someone cares. That's really it.
So many people coming through, and I know you create the private moment with them, but what's in your head, what's going through your mind as you're meeting all these fans? Are you trying to dial in on that one moment with that one fan at that one time?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not very good at multitasking. I'm really not. It's just one thing at a time. I like doing one thing at a time.
Well, when we were talking to Donna Jean and John Trepane about this, they were describing, and I've seen it backstage, when you're talking with someone, not in that private, in the box, doing yoga, as you were with that gentleman back there, but in a room, I have seen you having a conversation, and there's a lot of people who would want to meet Keith Urban, whether they're in the business or not, and you are very dialed into that person that you're talking to. Someone will tap you on the shoulder and a quick acknowledgement, but you finish the conversation. That takes a little bit of concentration to do that, right?
Yeah, and I feel like if I'm talking to somebody and somebody's just walked in and I want to say hi to them, you just have to wait a beat. You just do, and I always hope the other person understands that. We're in the middle of something. And I'm a big believer in looking in someone's eye when you shake their hand. That's really, really important. So if someone walks over and wants to shake my hand, but I'm talking to somebody, I have to wait a second because I'm not going to do that. Right. It's just wrong on every level. So I don't know. Everyone does the thing that works for them, but for me, I just want it to be real in the moment, and hopefully everyone is okay with that.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe the goal, I guess, it sounds like when people meet you and they show them the picture, show their friends that picture, they want, if the friend says, well, what's he like? But they
Right.
want to know what Keith Urban is like instead of,
Yeah.
well, I don't know, I met him and he took this picture and then we got shuffled us off out of the room. That happens a lot of meet and greets.
Well, it's rough. I think it's rough on artists in the sense that whatever brief meeting someone has with us is what they deem us to be, period. We're labeled that forever. You know, like I've had people come up to me and they go, oh, you're so much nicer than so-and-so. That was so rude. And I'm like, how many times do you meet them? And they go, once. And I go, where was it? And they go, oh, at the grocery store. They're in the middle of doing something. And they wouldn't even say hi. You know what I mean? You get more to the story and you suddenly realize, wow, this poor artist just got labeled a particular person by this fan or whoever, but they were in a really, you know, it wasn't an ideal situation. So, I mean, I'm just a human. I'm trying to, you know, you can't be all things to all people all the time, but I try my best to be one-on-one.
What I find remarkable is when you look at those pictures of you meeting the people in the box, you can see in your eyes that you're very present. And in my observations and participating in that, you're very, very present. And when I watch you on Idol as well, for as crazy, I mean, we see the edited version, and as crazy as that is, you are so present for each one of the people that come up. And that comes at a cost of energy to you. I'm curious, after a night of meeting people at a meet and greet, or wherever you are, one after another, and you're in that moment, that takes energy to do that. How do you find the energy to do that for long periods of time? And how do you keep that energy up? I mean, from the time you do a meet and greet, you know, next you're going to go on stage. Where do you find the energy?
Well, first of all, I think the energy is in the moment. That's actually where it exists. That's where everything becomes one. I mean, you know, I don't want to sit here and get too Tony Robbins on everybody because, you know, it can get all, you know, all ethereal and celestial. But at a certain point, the present is, I mean, let's get the cheesy quotes out of the way, right? I mean, the moment right now is a gift, and that's why they call it the present. We'll get that one out of the way. But it's so true. It's so true. They call them cliches because they're well-worn, well-tested truths. They're truths. And the only thing that's real is right now, you know? And I read something the other day about I can't change the past, you know, but I can change my relationship with the past because I'm just as guilty as dwelling on stuff that I could have done. We played last night, and I went home and going, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And I'm like, dude, let it go. It's gone. It's you know, it's like the conversation you have in the shower with yourself after you've just had an argument with somebody, and you have the argument again in the shower with yourself, and you go, yeah,
Only it's
that
better.
got it.
Yeah, it's
that
better.
got it.
Yeah.
Now I got him. And you go, that is long gone. But you play it over and over again to get it right, you know. But it's only about now. That's it. It's, you know, the power of now, as that book says. It's really, everything's in the moment. I find I have a lot more calm if I stay in the moment. And when I find myself going too far ahead or back, I get anxiety or I mean, look, you know, has anybody seen Birdman, by the way, that film? I mean, it's a phenomenal film because it really touches upon all the challenges we have. And one of the worst is our ego, right? I mean, I'm an artist, I have an ego, but it keeps me everywhere but in the middle. It keeps me everywhere but now. It takes me forward, it takes me back, it takes me up, it takes me down, but it will not let me be right here, right now. And when I can stay in this little place, I'm fine. It's that moment when something was really bothering you, and for a split second you forgot what it was, and you feel really good, and you go, oh, what was that thing? And in that second, you feel so good, like nothing bothers you. You go, what's that thing? Oh, there it is. Right? Wow, that's bizarre that we do that. If we can't think of it, we're actually fine. But we bring it on, and it's a crazy thing. So, you know, I'm just trying to be more in the moment. I almost had to write about a lot of things in my life before I actually was doing them, and before I was actually living them. And I had a record called Be Here in 2004, and that was about being present. That's why I called the album that. But I was really anything but present through a lot of that period. And I've, since turned my life around in a lot of ways and realized the brevity of time, really. It's very brief.
Go ahead.
Go.
Other than this seminar, which seems to be going on and on, and I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm so sorry.
I,
It's like standing in the DMV line, isn't it?
I had a quick idol follow-up.
go for it.
A quick
Yeah,
follow-up on Idol. One thing that I see with you on American Idol, and maybe I guess it applies to this. You are, and all I see is the edited version. I don't see the hours that you're sitting there, watching all these people come in and audition. There's a real strong element of compassion on your part with these people who are there pursuing their dream. But, I mean, you're there for hours. How do you conjure up all that compassion? I mean, aren't there some people you just want to say, get out? Get out now.
The ones that are obviously wasting time, right? I mean, but that's luckily now Idol's got to the point where they've really thinned out a lot of that, and they're really bringing people that want to do something. And all I remember is that when I was doing, when I was going for an audition, when I was doing a showcase for a label, the whole day was like, it was only about that moment, right? And every one of these guys and girls have gotten up early and they're obsessively thinking about what song they're going to do, how they're going to move, what they're going to wear. They're just, what's it going to be like? I mean, everything is about that. And then let alone traveling to a city to audition. So when you put all that together, it's days and days and days of nothing but that one moment, that 30 seconds or whatever it is. Their entire thing is about that moment. So for me to kind of just backhand it seems really insane. I mean, I know it's one of 70 people that we're listening to, but I try to, when I find myself drifting a little bit, I try and remember that it's everything to them, everything. But it's hard to say no, when you're going to break their heart.
It's got to be.
I hate that.
Got to be. So we talked a little bit about your fan meet and greets. I'm interested in hearing from you about the radio meet and greets, which are a very intimate experience because you have so many friends that are coming through the radio meet and greet line, and people you know and who you have appreciation for playing your music and all of that sort of thing. Tell me, I think the folks in this room that have come back and seen you as a radio guest are really interested in knowing what your take is on what makes a great present radio meet and greet when they come to see you, programmers and so forth.
Well, there shouldn't be any difference. I think that's first and foremost, right? It's people.
Yeah.
It's all people. I mean, there shouldn't be a difference.
Do they differ how do they differ? Or are they all the same from radio?
Well, the radios, they're looser because I know so many of them. And it's a more, we set up a cool little area where they can get drunk and eat hot dogs and, it's like just chill out. Yeah, right?
Like a dream come
Jello
true.
shots and stuff like that, And because, the drunker you get, the more talented we become.
That's right.
It's like bowling.
So it's a strategy behind that.
Right, yeah.
All right.
But it's loose and, I've been fortunate to, now know a lot of these guys and girls for many, many years.
But you at some point changed the way you did the radio, didn't you? I mean, I don't remember. At first it was, I don't say back in the day because it hasn't been that long, but you did change the strategy of visiting radio guys. What was it that you weren't feeling was being accomplished for you and maybe for them?
I think just an individual time, that was when they're sort of like, when it was all blurred and blended into one long sort of cattle call. I thought, well, let's see if we can figure out how to make this a better experience for everybody. And we're always tinkering and fine-tuning it and listening to people's feedback as well, We don't know everything, so we hear people say, well, it'd be good if you tried this and if you tried that. I'm always up for, trying things.
So the good visits with radio people, what do you walk away thinking?
Well, I mean...
When they go really well and you'd say, oh, that was a good one.
Well, I mean, a lot of the time it's the trick is, the challenge is that sometimes you walk in and everyone's kind of loose and they're all chatting, and other times everybody's very quiet.
Really?
And I'm not I don't know that I'm that big sort of personality that can walk in and I'm not Steven Tyler, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have that.
Thank you for that.
Person, but I mean, But that person, Stephen would know how to walk in and just make the room happen. And I'm not quite that way. I kind of like everyone, all chatting and everything. So sometimes it takes a second. I get a little nervous or something.
Well,
You're nervous? You're nervous at
No,
radio?
well,
yeah, I
just-
can't. How is that possible that you're nervous?
I sometimes don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to kind of.
Well, wait. Now, are you talking about like the fan meet and greets? Because with radio,
No, with radio.
have it with
sometimes
radio.
with the radio
Really,
meeting, it's a little bit sometimes.
that
yeah.
surprises me because you
Yeah.
do have you have a long career relationship with radio. You do, as you said, know a lot of these guys. And what is it about that makes you a little uncomfortable? Not uncomfortable, but maybe nervous about meeting these guys at first?
Well, it's only if I walk into a room and it's full of 20 people, and everyone sort of gathers around and they just sort of.
Oh, right, staring at
Nobody
you.
says anything. I don't know what to say.
Keith, be Keith Urban. Play something.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Go.
need my guitar is what I need,
Right.
probably, or something. Yeah.
Well, we want to get to questions in a moment here because Keith was very adamant about wanting to get questions from the audience. So we have one more thing we're going to cover, and then please think about questions. There's microphones, and I can jump out there if needed and help out because it's a very big room filled with a lot of people. But
And we're looking for questions about being present,
yeah,
about
Yeah.
the kind of things we've been talking about here today.
Yeah.
so think about a couple questions. The last topic, certainly not least. I know that in your mind, it's first and foremost for you, Keith, just knowing you a little bit, and that's the family aspect of it. You have two high-profile careers, and kids have to challenge your desire on a daily basis to be present for your family. So can you talk about that challenge and the balance and how to be there for your family in the midst of all this other stuff that you have to get done?
Well, I mean, first of all, I screw up a lot. I do. The wheels fall off, I mean, it's another sort of cliche, but it's so true, is that balance is never achieved, it's just maintained. And as a guy, I don't know about maintaining anything. I just set it in motion and then leave it be, and I'm going to do something else. Maintaining something was really foreign to me. I didn't know how to maintain anything until I got married, and suddenly it's like, I've got to learn how to maintain things, and be okay when the wheels fall off, because they do. I get it wrong. I forget stuff, and I sometimes Nick will ask me something and I completely forget what it was because I was thinking of a song or something. And so now I'm just trying to get better at going, at the end of the conversation, going, I'm so sorry, I missed every bit of that. I was thinking about something else and I missed it. Can you tell me again,
That happens at your house too. That is so weird.
Yeah, a lot. So, it's not that it doesn't happen, it's just that I'm more willing now to fess up and say, I missed it all. I was thinking about, I saw something shiny.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. So does Nicole share the same sort of centered place in a desire to be present that you do? Is that something that you've grown into together, or she just sort of automatically was that way anyways?
Well, I think, first of all, it's all intimacy, which I knew nothing about my whole life, really, until I met my wife. That's when I started learning about what that is. She's a very intimate person, and I've learned a lot about that. And that's probably what's helped me as well, become more present, more aware. Losing some friends in the last handful of years, including, my father-in-law. Just, you guys all know, when you lose somebody, man, everything stops for a second and you realize really what's important. So, and then we forget it, right? It's like going to a seminar like this and you got a head full of wisdom and clarity, and then you walk out the door and it's all gone. It's like, I'm back to kicking this and road rage and everything. So,
I lost that at the Bridge Bar last night.
it's a
about
work in
12:30.
progress, right?
Can you share any ways with us that all that plays out at home because your wife has a very unique and crazy work schedule too.
Yeah, and I mean, and we just deal with it as we deal with it, because we make the best laid plans. I mean, I'm fortunate that I have a gig where I can put a tour together, and Darren's right there, so Darren let me put the tour together. And we know what the tour is, not much is going to change in that. I can see it a year ahead. It's pretty much going to be what it is, and I know where I'm going to be. Nick's gig can have a film happen really unexpectedly and out of the blue. And suddenly, I've put the tour in place based on the fact that Nick is going to be shooting this film over here. Great, this is perfect, we've got a great plan. Suddenly a film happens and it's a 2-month shoot in Belgium. great, I'm doing a tour of Canada at that time,
Right.
you know. How are we going to make this work? And so the only thing we figured out, and again, everything that we do because it was a big collapsed heap that we came out of and learned how to fix stuff, you know. So I try and do it where I only tour, say, 3 shows in a row, and then I have at least 2 days off, if not 3 days, because if she's in Belgium, that gives me just enough time to fly to Belgium, be there for a day, and fly back again.
Wow.
Seriously?
Yeah, and which for me I will do because
That's awesome.
at the end of the life, I wished I'd done more gigs or spent more time with my wife. And so some guys just answered more gigs, but you got to recalibrate your marriage, brother.
They've heard nothing you've said this entire session.
But so that, you know, but I had to learn that the hard way because it happened where she was shooting a film in another country, and our tour, which was of Canada at the time, you can't. If you're going to go to Canada, you can't do 2 shows and then have 4 days off and then do 2 shows. It's crazy, you know, trucks and crew all sitting around. So Canada becomes one long big sort of thing for, say, 3 weeks, with a day off here, a day off there. If she's in another country, I don't have time. I actually can't fly somewhere and make it back in time for the gig. That happened to us a few years back, and we went for 2-3 weeks where I didn't see her, and that for me is a long time. That's too long. It just is. So we learned to recalibrate it, but it still gets messed up. You know, it's no matter how much we try and plan it, it can fall in a heap sometimes. So we just try and keep a transparency about what's going on, frustrations, and work through it. What's the solution? Is there a solution?
You talked about sometimes the wheels coming off, and it sounds like she's the one who puts them back on for you in many cases.
Yeah.
And so that 2-week period, what's going on for you? Are you able to be present in your other parts of your life when she's not around?
Yeah, I mean, as best as I can. I mean,
Are you at home eating TV dinners when she's gone?
No, definitely not. But the pull gets stronger and stronger. You know, the home pull gets stronger the longer we're away. But at the same time, I always recognize, well, this is where I am. So I can, like for example, if I hadn't seen my wife in 2 weeks and we're here doing this seminar, right? I could be frustrated that I wish I was with her and her, but I still got to be here anyway. So why don't I just be here, right? Because I have to be anyway. So but it's a process, you know. It's a process.
Should we take some questions?
Yeah, I think we should take some questions. We got the microphone here, and why don't you stand up? Hold on. You want to go to the mic? Just go to the mic.
Keith, I got a question. It's probably not going to be a real popular one here, though. But as someone who looks up to you that's achieved a year of sobriety, can you talk about how you went through that and how that helped with being present?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been sober for just over 8 years and coming up on 9 this year. And that, thank you. My family clapped way louder than that. Hallelujah. I mean, that obviously has had a huge change in, you know, everything. The way I see and feel and be in the moment has changed extraordinarily because of that. At the same time, I always preface, I got nothing against people drinking. That's just, you know, I kind of, especially with a gig, like I'd much rather play to an audience who's slightly lubricated and having a great time. As an artist, you know, going to the places where nobody drinks is sort of like, so I'm not against that. So when it's good to kind of say that I don't speak much about my sobriety because it's a very personal thing, and I also don't want people to think that I frown on drinking, because I don't. Before you know it, you're kind of in this like trap of sound bites that are misconstrued, and it's like I just avoid the whole thing and get on with my life, because I think it was, you know, Gandhi, when they asked him, what's your message? And he said, my life is my message. I always thought that's really a pretty powerful thing to do, to just live my life and let that be what it is that I'm trying to say.
It's an excellent answer, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Keith, I think it's very impressive the way that you pay attention to and cherish those interactions with your fans, and I think that's a great lesson for all of us as we occupy that low rung on the fame ladder with circus clowns as radio DJs, but we also interact with our listeners, and that's something that's great for us to all remember. First question, are there any tips in doing that and making yourself do that? And then resources that maybe you've used. You referenced the Tolle book and Gandhi and a couple other things, things you've read or personal practices that you have that help you to be in the moment.
You know, I was raised in a family with no religiosity at all, none. Never went to church. Parents didn't believe in God, still don't. So there was like none of that in my home at all. And yet somehow, ever since I was a kid, I always felt there was this other power. There was this thing, there was this entity, and I couldn't put my finger on what that was, but I just knew there was something more. There was something more than me and more than us, you know. And maybe that comes from being an artist. I don't know, but I've always felt it and never felt I had to sort of put a label on it or categorize it. I could feel it. So I found myself gravitating towards literature that was speaking of those sorts of things. The first book I ever read was called Three Magic Words by U.S. Anderson, and from there I started finding other books that spoke of all the same kind of thing. Joseph Campbell is another great teacher, because he's not specifically teaching, he's sort of going and finding all this information and bringing it back, all these thoughts and viewpoints and ways of living and being in the world, and bringing it back and presenting it so you can sort of make up your own mind and find what works for you, because I think that's very, very important for everyone to find what works for you. And certainly in a radio DJ capacity, you've got to, only you know what works for you. Some people work great with stress and everything just coming down and 4 million things going at once, and that's how you work. So that's okay, you know. It's really important to thine own self be true as well. But I think for me it was always a sense of spirituality and spiritualism, and from there it's all connected. You know, Joseph Campbell is of the belief that we're all singing the same song, and I rather like that.
Thanks.
Hey, Robert Bwan from Country Fastball, and unlike RJ, I made it to the show last night. Have some serious man crush issues going on too, so just want to put that out there. I'm not ashamed of it.
I'm not saying I don't.
Right? Yeah. Well, okay. I'm just opening up the topic.
Just saying I was tired.
All right. Good talk. Good talk. On a more serious, I don't know, it's not a serious note, but as far as country music today, whenever I hear complaints about it from whoever, whether it's industry or non-fans or whatever it is, there'll be two types of complaints. One is that it all sounds the same. And the other complaint is, well, that somebody does something different. Oh, it doesn't even sound like country. So it's either too same or too different, which obviously is a paradox in itself.
Sure.
Is that something similar to what you hear about the music that's when it's criticized? And how do you stay above that? Because you've stayed above that.
Because it's the same as it ever was. Absolutely nothing has changed in the most beautiful way, in the sense that, you know, every genre, including ours, has to have people, the pioneers out in the front, and they're always getting the arrows and getting shot at, but they push the boundaries out, and the whole thing keeps moving forward. And our genre its whole history is rooted in pulling influences from outside it and incorporating them to expand our own out and to evolve it forward. It's the same as it ever was. I mean, certainly Chet Atkins bringing, and Owen Bradley bringing strings to a country session was blasphemous. Where's the fiddle? Where's the fiddle? Where's the pedal steel? What's this big orchestra? What is that crap, you know? And it was Countrypolitan. And it was, I mean, Chet makes no bones about it. In the late 50s, he said they were losing market share to rock and roll and to pop music. And they went, well, how could we make our music more palatable to the masses? And that's what they did. But it evolved the music in the process. And we had Patsy Cline records, and we have Jim Reeves. It's the same now as it ever was. And as Dean Dillon said beautifully at the BMI dinner that night, every artist speaks for their generation. He put it so beautifully. He just said, you know, whether you think it's country or not, every country artist that's playing in arenas and amphitheaters and stadiums all around America is apparently connecting with a lot of people. And they're speaking to their generation just as the ones before spoke to theirs and the ones before spoke to theirs and the ones after ours will speak to them. It won't be us. It's not our job. It's their job. And, I love Dean for putting it so clearly. It's beautiful.
Just as you're describing that, then, it sounds like you benefit from the fact that you are a historian of the format, whereas maybe could you see other artists that maybe are on the scene now that don't understand that that's what the history of the music is, and that's why they do get the arrows slung at them? Is that something to that?
I think it's good. I think it's important to have as much knowledge of the history of the genre as possible in order to know how to sort of pull it forward, what works and what doesn't. I mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, everyone. It's art. It's subjective. It's just subjective, and you don't have to like it just because everybody else does, and you don't have to hate it because everybody else does too. You're just free to make your own decision. But we need the artists that keep pushing it forward, and it won't always be right, but somewhere in the process will keep moving. It's a tricky thing. Our genre is like a church. It's just like a church. We have to maintain a certain set of traditions, otherwise it's not the church anymore. It's lost its whole foundation. We've got to keep that intact, but we have to keep bringing in believers. We have to keep expanding the congregation. How do we do that and stay relevant and not lose our traditions? And that's the ongoing journey for country music.
Thank you.
And just one quick thought on what Robert said. I think a lot of I don't mean to go off into the weeds, but here I go. No, a lot of the younger artists that you're talking about, Robert, they're not historians on the format because their personal history is 25 years old. If you talk to some young people and you tell them about their favorite movie of all time, it's it's like 2004. Their point of reference. But the longer they're in the format and the longer they progress and evolve into an artist, then they become a historian on the music.
Yeah, and I'm no Marty Stewart, but I grew up playing country music that predominantly kind of started from more so the 60s forward, I think. So Glenn Campbell and a lot of those artists were the ones that my dad played. So that's kind of where I started and went forward from there.
Anyway, sorry about that. Next question.
Now I'm nervous because you made me wait. I noticed on American Idol that you know words to every song, no matter what year, Broadway songs. I watch you, and your lips move, and you sing along with the voices, and that impressed me so much because I'm thinking, they sing those songs in Australia too?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes. I'll tell you the funniest story. Well, this is a true story. When I came to Nashville on one of my early trips in the 90s, I was at somebody's birthday party. And we were at this party, and we were sitting back having cake. And this guy came up to me and he goes, "Man, y'all have birthdays in Australia?" I said, "No, we don't." Hey, man, you ought to, man. They're fun. You get cake, gifts. Dead serious. I said, I'll look into that.
But it is really different down there
It's
in
very
Australia.
different down there, yeah. The funny thing is, all the television in Australia was American. When I grew up in Australia, it was all American TV. I mean, from Petticoat Junction to Green Acres to Dukes of Hazzard to
But
you name it, that's all we watched.
But you mentioned your parents playing, I know you're a huge Glenn Campbell fan, and playing Glenn Campbell records and music, but country music was always pretty big in Australia. It's been, hasn't it? I mean, I've always known that it's been very popular for a long time.
It's a rural country, a storytelling country, and so it has that heritage and the kind of topography and the people and the lifestyle. I was just very fortunate that that's the kind of subculture I grew up in. I grew up in Brisbane, and to keep the story short, there was all these country music clubs in and around Australia, which still exist. They're sort of amateur clubs for people who love country music, and you can join the club. And my parents joined this club. So all the kids I hung out with, and I was 7, and all the kids I hung out with were all members of this club. Their parents joined the country music club. So we'd get together once every 2 weeks at a function, and they'd throw a band together, and you could get up and sing, put your name down on the thing, and get up and sing, and the band would play. And that's how we lived, and that was the subculture. And then all these clubs from around the country would converge once a year on a particular town, and they'd all compete against each other. It's like Best of Show, right? But for country music, and it was really, really cool because that's the culture I grew up in. So it seemed very, very normal to me.
We just have a couple minutes left, so
Okay.
I don't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say, I have a cassette from 1997, The Ranch sampler. I've moved 4 times. I still have it. If you don't have one, I'll give it to you.
I have a box of them.
Okay.
Many boxes
I
of
thought maybe you couldn't get rid of them. I didn't know. But anyway, I'm a true fan.
Thank you very much, baby.
And quick trivia, we were talking about it earlier. Keith might be the only artist who's ever played the New Faces show twice. Once as a member of the Ranch,
That's
and
right.
as a solo artist.
I think the year we played in the Ranch, the new band called the Dixie Chicks were
Yeah.
coming on the scene.
Yeah.
Truly, yeah. And then I think when I did it maybe as a solo, it was me and Brad Paisley maybe, Rascal Flats. I
Wow,
think were on that
I'd have
show.
to look it up on the CRB
Yeah.
website, but I
Yeah.
will.
Crazy.
We're going to take 2 more. Wow, there's a line of people there. Just go ahead. We'll see how it goes.
I'll
Keep
try
it-
to be quick.
yeah.
I know I'm not unique in the room in that I'm an OM, I'm a PD, I schedule all the music, I plan all the promotions, I do the imaging, I'm a part-time engineer, all of those sorts of things. So I know that I have moments when I'm sitting in the morning show, I'm supposed to be concentrating on reading this list of school delays for Our Lady of the Wooden Ruler and Little Mistakes Daycare. And I find myself thinking about what I'm going to present in the sales meeting in 15 minutes.
Right.
Keith, can you talk about moments when you're on stage or moments when you are trying to be present, when you know you need to be present, you find yourself drifting, and what sort of techniques you have to bring yourself back, to recenter you in that moment so you can be present for what you're trying to do most and best?
I have a lot of empathy for your position because you just got so many plates in the air, and it's a fact. So, part of it comes down to getting to the realization, and I have this conversation with Nick a lot. I go, well, some stuff's just not going to get done. It's just not. And I'm going to do everything I can to take care of everything I got. And then some other stuff will just have to wait, or it'll fall by the wayside, whatever, because I'm going to implode anyway, When I'm on stage, I think it's a strange dichotomy of being completely present and completely lost in the moment at the same time. Because I find if you're completely present like this, it's too cerebral. And as an artist, I don't want to be in that place. I don't want to be too aware, because it's not pure. Then it's not. Then it's me. It's not the other thing. It's not coming through. So I just try and get back to just letting go, getting out of the way. That's really what it is, getting out of the way. And however that's done probably changes from moment to moment. I don't know if that helped at all. I don't even know if I can impart anything specific.
Let it go. Just let it go.
Yeah, but I read something about breathing. I'm hopeless at all that stuff, meditative breathing. I don't meditate. I don't do any of that stuff. But I did hear that being present is a form of meditation in itself. That there's a meditative feeling in being present, like me just talking to you right now, only to you and nobody else, is very meditative because it's very focused, it's very now, it's one thing. And if I do that, I find that I can often take care of a lot of other things quickly. For whatever reason, I don't know how that happens. It's almost like, when you haven't slept because you've got good CRS, right? Hello.
None of us here would know about it.
No, right. But when you haven't slept, because you've got so many things on, and so you don't sleep, and you spend all these hours and hours doing all this stuff, and then sometimes you go, you know what, I just need to sleep. And you sleep, and you've got half the amount of hours to do it, and you get it all done. And because it's more efficient, I think you just operate more efficiently. So, I think that don't forget to sleep this weekend.
That's such an interesting distinction that you made between being present and being lost in the moment. That had never
Well, I think
occurred
that's
to
the
me. It's so
dichotomy
different.
that's the dichotomy of an artist, I think. I do. And even, you guys, what you do on air, you've got to be completely prepared, completely present, but you've got to also be able to respond to a call, especially when someone calls in, and they might have something extraordinary that you can really use and make a moment with that, a moment that's going to pull everybody in. But if you're not listening to them, you miss it.
Hate to do it, but going to make this the last question because we're running late.
We only got 3 people. Can we do the
You
two?
want to do?
Can we do all 3?
Hi, Keith.
Absolutely.
Hi.
I'm Cynthia with Digital Rodeo.
Hi,
And first of
Cynthia.
all, I want to say thank you so much for choosing this subject and speaking about it because it's really important to me in my life, and it's made a big difference studying the teachings of Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And I know you've noticed that since you have children, that children have no problem with this practice. They live presence every day, and they're wonderful to watch and learn from. My question is, how has this helped you with your songwriting? Do you feel like this presence really makes a difference for a songwriter?
I haven't specifically found that to correlate for me personally, because my writing, my method of writing is so sort of sporadic anyway. It just I operate more from sort of inspiration and apply that to the discipline after the inspiration comes. So that's an elusive. Writing's an elusive thing anyway. Creating's a very elusive thing. But having kids has made me even more present. People always say, "Oh, kids are great because they keep you young," and I always go, "They keep you now. It's not young or old. It's just now. Kids keep you now," and I love that about them.
Thank you.
All right. Next question, please.
Hi, Keith. I just wanted to ask, I'm 19, I'm from New York City, and I go to college in Nashville, and I'm so far away from my mom, and like you were talking about with Nicole, there are times when you're far away for a long period of time. How do you deal with being present with the distractions of technology, especially with my generation? We're always on something.
Right.
How do you get, how do you get rid of that distraction when you're with people you care about and you want to kind of be present with them, but there's still so much other stuff going on?
Again, I think everybody's got their own way of reconciling with that because everyone's got different demands, different jobs, different everything. So I can't give a sort of blanket answer to that. But for me, Nick and I, when we first met, she said, I don't want to text and I don't want to do any emails. It's only phone calls. And so that's what we've maintained for 10 years, is we don't email and we don't text. And again, that's not for everybody. That's just what works for us. It works for us because it keeps our relationship different to every other relationship I have. Everybody else, I talk or text or email. It's a combination of all of those. But Nick, it's only talking. Very, very rarely will we text something. And when we do, I'm so excited. It's like getting texted in school or something. It's like, that's what it feels like. It's like someone passing me a note or something. It's, get all giddy, So I think that helps. That helps us as well. And also, look, as best I can, I really try and. Someone said one time, if your marriage isn't your priority, you're not married. And I thought, gosh, for me, that's so true. And so I really try and just, so long as I keep her as a priority, everything else sort of seems to work. It just mostly works out pretty good. And when I don't keep that as a priority, it's Jenga.
Final question of the day, sir.
If you hadn't got married, what would you be doing today?
I'd be in jail.
You reckon? And one thing about Australia, I'm from the UK. They want to listen to a thing called A Pub With No Beer.
Right.
One of the old Australian songs.
Yes.
But seriously, if you hadn't got married, do you think you'd still be where you are today?
It's the lonesome away from the campfire at night. Where the wild dingoes go. Something. Don't know the one. I know the words to a million songs, except this one that I need to know right now. There's nothing so lonesome, morbid or drear, than to stand in the bar of a pub with no beer.
Great song. We should go on The Voice. Thank you very much, Keith. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
On that note, Keith Urban, thank you so much for being present with us today.
Thank you.
Keith Urban, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you all. Thank you, RJ. Thank you, Bev.